While the issue remains unaddressed, the prevalence of underrepresentation and misrepresentation of minorities is evident through race and gender discrimination in both the professional world and the educational system.
I know this may seem dumb or whatever, but I totally relate to Piggy in Lord of the Flies. Do you remember how he's bullied for his asthma and the way he talked?
Yeah, that was kind of messed up. I mean, ironically, he knew the most out of all the kids there. It's kind of cruel how those children can treat him that way.
Exactly, man. I feel just like him. I know how I might look weird or whatever, but I spent a lot of time on my ideas, and I just wish my classmates and teachers would acknowledge that. For example, the other day in Spanish, while I was presenting my project, the kids in the back were just laughing at me because of my shoes or whatever. I spent a lot of time in that project, you know? I just wish people would care more about my ideas rather than my appearance.
Yeah, bro, I totally agree. I mean, come to think of it, a lot of the things that we learn in English class relate to our life.
Dude, we should totally talk to the principal about this. I know a lot of kids just feel strongly about this issue too.
I totally agree. Let's go right now.
Talk to me about the trust fund. I don't know. It's just going hello, Mr. Godsetti, Mr. Nerula. We had some issues to talk about that have been bothering us lately. And we wanted to see if you would hear us out.
Sure, go ahead. Alright, so Neil and I have come to the conclusion that today's students feel that they don't have the proper opportunities because of their ethnic background, their gender, or their sexuality. And we feel this needs to be addressed.
Alright, so we hear you out, and we'll address this further. I like your idea. Thank you, sirs. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Let's commence. Alright, gentlemen. Clearly a problem exists in our education system, and we gotta get to the bottom of it.
I, for one, see exactly where these kids are coming from. Just the other day, I was reading a talk to teachers by James Baldwin, great read by the way, and I realized how it's so easy for teachers to unintentionally exclude students. In Baldwin's article, he gave many useful suggestions to prevent this unintentional exclusion. Aside from Baldwin's piece, I found many eye-opening writings that we should examine. Let's have a look at them.
Yeah, and recently I came across this interesting quote in this article titled "Talking About Race in Mostly White Schools." So why don't you guys take a look at these images real quick. So the author of the article, Lee Schaefer, said when racially charged controversies dominate the news cycle, some young people may feel disconnected or even uninterested. Gentlemen, let's just think about that for a second. These young people are next generation, and we cannot have them feeling this way. Disconnected, uninterested. We have to make them feel innovative. We have to make them feel engaged. We have to make them feel supported. Race discrimination is prevalent, and these are feelings that we can ultimately change.
I was also reading about racism. In the New York Times article, proficiency of black students is found to be far lower than expected. The author of the article explains how the reports have shown that black boys on average fall behind from in their earliest years. Black mothers have a higher infant mortality rate, and black children are twice as likely as whites to live in a home when no parents has a job. Thus, in high school, this affects their education. African American boys drop out at nearly twice the rate of white boys. It seems that African Americans are stuck in this cycle where they cannot escape the educational system because of outside discrimination.
That's just a coincidence because I also read about Arab Americans facing discrimination in the article, Are Arab Americans a Disadvantage? Alexander Chasm, the author, claims that Arab Americans suffer social discrimination and due into the part of their distinctive food dishes, such as hummus and baklava. This is simply degrading. These people are facing discrimination because of their food. Our nation is built on a melting pot of cultures, so our educational system must also embody this.
Wait, gentlemen, I think we have to step aside from just racism and take a little deeper look at the other concerns that students are bringing up. It appears that John and Neil believe that we are being discriminated against in regards to their sexuality or gender. Let's call them in and hear what these kids have to say.
Come on in, boys.
Hello, sirs.
Welcome, John.
Alright, we need to empower the students with different sexual orientations and show them they are accepted despite the fact that certain industries still discriminate them. The article Is Science Too Straight by Barbara Moran talks about this. Like, did either one of you know that over 1/3 of LGBTQ survey respondents consider leaving their workplace or school in the past year after experiencing harassment or discrimination?
Really? I didn't know that.
Students may already be facing this level of discrimination from their peers, So it's important that our curriculum is inclusive and accepting.
That makes sense. We need to focus our curriculum on total representation so we can deter bullying and harassment by showing the kids that there's nothing wrong, nothing to be teased about for being different. We all know the story of Romeo and Juliet.
But we need to teach the story of Romeo and Julio.
We need to pay closer attention to gender discrimination in today's era. I mean, look at these images. As educators, we need to pay closer attention to the treatment of female students. While reading Underrepresentation of Women in Academia and the U.S. Government, an article by Karen Walker, I learned about the lack of women in STEM professions. In the U.S., women still earn significantly less money than men for the same work, from 72% to 80% of a male salary.
The existence of this discrimination is ridiculous, and in fact illegal according to the United States legislation. They even state that the EPA requires men and women to receive equal pay for equal work in the same establishment.
And the gender gap disappearing in the professional world is going to take a long time. So we need to create an environment where everyone's given an equal opportunity and where every kid, regardless of gender, does not feel left out.
Neil and John, I got great news for you guys. We're going to try making an environment where all students can thrive in the educational system.
Yeah.
We are living in a society where there's injustice. Serving injustice when justice is on the stove isn't just. All I'm trying to say is that race has been an issue in schools, sexuality has been an issue in schools, and gender gap. That's been prevalent around the world actually. And if we don't step up, we can't make change. And if we don't make change, our society is going to fall. And it's our responsibility as a school district to make change. And guess what? We are enforcing new curriculum, and I hope that this encourages education around the world to make change.